Dean.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Terry. Good evening, everybody. Hope you're well. There he is. Hello, David.
How you doing, my bald friend? You okay?
Yeah, very well, thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody this evening. My name's Dr. Dean Allen. Thank you for waiting patiently in the waiting room. Just to let you explain that this interview with David Cotterill is actually taking place between continents. I'm based here in South Africa. I'm using a cell phone at the moment, so I hope you can see me and hear me. We're going through unprecedented times at the moment, so what we wanted to do was try and give something back. As you know, it's Mental Health Awareness Week this week, and in fact, this whole month is dedicated to mental health awareness. So what better way to actually get together on an evening and have some good conversation. And I'm delighted to introduce my special guest this evening, David Cotterill. How are you doing, David?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Just chilling out, you know. I've had to put the headphones on so we don't look like brothers.
No, we certainly are not doing a promotion for a shampoo company tonight, that's for sure. I'd like to think you were my brother, but I've got a few years on you, David, that's for sure. But no, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We're going to be talking a lot about your football career and various things. But first of all, before we go any further, how are you finding this lockdown situation and this whole COVID-19 world that we find ourselves in?
The most thing that I miss is probably the routine of going to the gym. So it's really difficult because normally when you're in the football environment, you kind of have a routine, you get told what to do, go to training, blah, blah, blah. But I think that's what I miss the most is just going to the gym. I've actually enjoyed it. I've managed to see my kids and I've managed to catch up on work as well. So that's been great. So I think I've coped quite well. And I always keep telling myself, look, I've been into rehab. That was way worse. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, no, sure. These are unprecedented times, of course. I know a lot of us have had to change our work routines. I just explained, we're actually in level 4 lockdown here in South Africa. We have been for 7 weeks now, which means that we actually can't go out and exercise unless you go out between I think it's 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. in the morning. Lucky enough, like you, I like my exercise. I found myself on a farm here where we've moved to, so I can at least run. Exercise is so important. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, though, you've recently signed for Barry Town, and you haven't played a game yet, or have you?
I've played about 2 or 3 games, and I obviously didn't kick a ball for like 2 years, so that was tough going back. But and then I got a little bit of a niggle injury wise, and then obviously the lockdown has happened, and it's kind of, you know, stop start was happening all the time. So and then at that level as well, games would, you know, get called off. So it has been a difficult start from that point of view where, you know, you can't get going. But yeah, I've enjoyed the start there. Good.
You've I tell you what, you've probably extended your career with this lockdown, as a lot of footballers have. That's for sure. Before we go any further, I must share with people, as you can see, me and David share one thing. If it's not our football talent, is our haircut. That's for sure. And we've all seen these wonderful things that have appeared on the internet, etc. And I was following you on social media, David, and it was just inspired. People would have heard the music there in the intro, Queen. And I just want to share this because it's one of the funniest things I've seen recently, and it's something we certainly have in common. Terry, could you just put on that video for us, please?
I want to break free. I want to break free.
It still makes me laugh. It's absolute genius, that, isn't it? Before we start talking about haircuts and things like that, the important thing about tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is we're doing this in support of David's foundation. I'll let David explain more about that, but I just want to explain what we're going to do in terms of tonight's interview. We've got a lady here in South Africa who's controlling things. So when you hear me say, Terry, can you put on a new screen, or Terry, who's asking the questions, I'm not going mad. It's actually a lady in Cape Town, 4 hours away from me, who's controlling this meeting. So I'm really grateful for her, as David is as well. But remember, tonight we're here for a really important cause, which is to give something back. And David's been doing that a lot recently with his work with the David Cotterill Foundation. So I'm going to ask the first question, David. What is the foundation all about, and what inspired you to set this up?
The reason why I decided to set up the foundation is because I feel that in the local area where I was from, that people can't afford to have the private counselling sessions or to get the support that they need with mental health or addiction. So that was my mind set really from that point of view, is that I wanted to give something back, where we provide mental health anonymous meetings, which is obviously free, where we just get to talk and share each other's ideas. And then we also have PTs who take fitness classes to help people obviously keep that routine and maintain a healthy body, healthy mind kind of mindset is what we try to do. And we just try and support as many people as possible all over. I've been to America to do talks and just to publicize, obviously what we're doing with the foundation. So I have an amazing team there who help me on a regular basis, and that's what we're trying to do, is just to give back and to try and help people who are not in a fortunate position to pay for the private counselling themselves.
I don't know if you agree, but certainly today, what we're going through, I think we're going to get another pandemic, and that will be an increase in incident of mental health. It's something we're all susceptible to. I certainly have been susceptible to it in the past. Last year was a really tough year for me. A lot of people will be surprised to hear that. It looks like I have this wonderful life traveling around the world doing talks, etc. But mental health is a serious thing that affects us all. So when I heard about your cause, and being a football fan as I am, and I knew all about you and your career, it was something I wanted to reach out and offer my help. So I'm so pleased we could actually do that this evening. So we're going to talk more about the reasons behind setting that up and your inspiration. But what I certainly like is the sound that you offer practical help. Because sometimes that's all we need, somebody to offer practical help in our time of need. So we'll talk more about that as we go on. But first of all, we're gonna start with the young, and I'm going to quote this: the young David Reese George Best Cotterill. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That is this gentleman's full name. David, explain your name, please.
I get asked this all the time. Well, my dad's a big Man United fan. He loved George Best, and he put his name in my middle name, so there's no real pressure. I remember when it didn't help really along my career, because every the football programs you have before the games, they would always say my middle name, and then obviously the fans would be on my case. So I'd be taking a set piece. I remember playing at QPR, and one of the fans just turned around and said, "You couldn't lace George Best's fucking boots. You're useless." So it was just like, am I allowed to swear, by the way, on this?
Look, we're after the watershed.
Yeah, we might have to keep it PG, but I'm just relating what the fans said. So
you're quoting.
I'm not really. It's not a really easy task to follow, as obviously following the footsteps of a legend like that.
Terry, I believe we've actually got proof of this, haven't we? Can we share this? Well, there we have. That's the corner of David's birth certificate. I think you can just probably see somewhere, but I promise you, George Best. But if you see there, George Best has actually signed David's birth certificate. I think you've got a funny story relating to that as well, haven't you, David?
Yeah, I remember when I was about between 12 and 14, George Best came to Cardiff, so I went with my mum to go and get an autobiography signed, and so my mum took the birth certificate as well. So when we got to the table to meet him, George Best, he turned around to his partner at the time, Alex, and he just said, "Look at this," and she just turned around and said, "Oh no, not a fucking another one." So it just so happens as well, that's my middle name, and I've turned out to be an alcoholic. That was good, wasn't it?
Well, you certainly followed the role model there.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember the famous quote about George Best when they questioned his lifestyle? He said he spent all his money on women, drinking, and fine living, and I wasted the rest. So, no, I was fortunate enough to work in Belfast around the time of George Best's death, and I've never seen anything like it. There was a parade that actually the city was at a standstill for days. So yeah, we know that the guy was a colourful character, but still one of the greatest players the world has ever seen, without a doubt. He was certainly named accordingly. Now I want to go back to where it all started. So you were born in Cardiff. You're a proud Welshman, and then at the age of 10. A team called Bristol City saw your talents. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I started playing football when I was 6 years of age. There was no teams in Cardiff, so I had to go to Barry to start playing. So I started playing when I was 6, and then I eventually got picked up when I was 10 years of age from a Bristol City scout, and that was like actually one of the only game I did. I was a striker back then, and I didn't score in that game. But funnily enough, that's the time that I got picked up to get selected to go to Bristol City. And then I went there, had a week's trial or whatever it was, and I eventually signed them there. And that's later on where I made my debut.
Now, how old? So now what kind of background did you have to prepare for this life of professional football? Because, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, David made his debut for Wales at 17, but just turning into his 18th birthday, which is quite incredible. So you're thrust now into the limelight, albeit at not a Premier League team, but a big club. Bristol is a big club. What preparation did you have? I mean, in terms of your family support, etc.
Yeah, I had great support. My parents went to they didn't miss a match. They went to every football game from 6 years of age to when I was playing professionally. So that didn't change. It's just very difficult because obviously I made my first team debut for Bristol City when I was 16, and I was like the second ever youngest player. So it's I literally one long out of school. I was in a men's game. When I look at my son, for example, now he's 4 years off being the age that I was when I made my debut, and it just brings back memories. I was very young, but I just think I worked extremely hard. I started playing football when I was 6, and my debut when I was 16. So that's that was 10 years of hard work. I wasn't an overnight success. I don't like that saying when people say, "Oh, footballers are an overnight success." They're not, because there's a lot of hours and a lot of preparation go into that and dedication for you to make it as a professional footballer. So I made my debut, and so yeah, it was very good. It was very exciting, and I set out to everything that I want to do. It was my dream to be a professional player.
You talked about the dedication and the discipline. What kind of things did you give up, you think, growing up? I mean, did you miss out? The classic cases, of course, people talk about missing out on a childhood because of the dedication to become a professional. Can you look back now and see how that happened, or did you just, it was something you wanted so much you didn't miss what your friends were experiencing?
Yeah, there's a lot of sacrifices. Well, I wasn't allowed to go out and with my friends. They'd be doing kids things, but I obviously had to be in a certain time. When school was finishing, I had to run home from school to jump in my dad's car to then drive from Cardiff to Bristol to train. So it was very fast paced and a lot of dedication. As I say, I missed out on hanging around with my friends because I was either training or I was practicing. So, and my dad always used to say that, no matter what, your friends will always be there if they're meant to be there, but this opportunity to be a professional footballer won't be, so you need to grab it. And I think that I just always remember him saying that, and that's what I wanted, because I didn't want to let my dream go for the sake of, believe it or not, I didn't used to drink in my teenage years, and I didn't really get into too much trouble because I was so focused on becoming a professional footballer.
Yeah. No, I did that. That's admirable, because I think when you're young, you just think life will go on forever, and you take things for granted. But it sounds like you had to focus. Who was the manager at Bristol City at the
time? Danny Wilson was the manager, but Brian Tinian gave me my debut. It's quite funny, really, because when I was at Bristol, I used to look in the first team, and there was no disrespect. I felt that I was good enough to play at the age of 15, but I think any young footballer or anyone who wants to achieve something, you should have that mentality, because you want to achieve the best things. Every footballer should always believe that they should be playing week in, week out. Otherwise, there's no point being involved. So that was my mentality from such a young age. I didn't feel out of place when I used to train with the first team when I was 15, get called up. I wasn't shy to tell the older players what I thought was a mistake, or to let them know that I won't accept them speaking to me in a certain way either. So I think you have to have that mentality to survive in an industry as such as football.
Yeah. I think for those of us who played football, it's changing room politics, isn't it? There's a hierarchy and you've got to find yourself within that hierarchy. Now, you went on to play 62 games for Bristol City, scoring 8 goals. I can remember watching you from the stands, and I think the fans knew that you were destined for greater things. You always had that flair about you. You were a winger, you were fast, you could beat your man, and you had a decent shot. And then we were all disappointed as Bristol City. Well, decent. We were expecting, I remember as the supporters, we were expecting a bid to come in from a bigger club. Well, I don't think it was a bigger club, but it was a club in a higher division. And then you got the dream move, and it was to Wigan Athletic in the Premier League. And you got a move at 18 years of age?
It was just before my 18th birthday. It was the transfer deadline day in August, I think it was, and my birthday was in December. The move didn't go down really well, to be quite honest, because I was in the Welsh squad, and I met up with the Welsh team, and John Toshak was the manager at the time, and Norwich actually put the bid in first, and it was accepted by Steve Lansdowne, who was the Bristol City owner, of course. And so Norwich sent their chief executive down, and I met the chief executive, and me and my agent was there. We signed the contract, but my agent knew that a Premier League team were going to come in, if not another one as well. And then so I was on the way to training with Wales, and Wigan had a bid accepted, and then obviously the terms were better, and I always wanted to play in the Premier League, and I felt that that's the jump I wanted to take. But Toshak it didn't go down well with him. He wanted me to go to Norwich and learn my trade that way. But like anything, I normally decide what I want to do, and that's I felt at the time that I was good enough to go and play at that level, and I wanted to experience playing in the Premier League.
Well, I think with hindsight, we don't know how our careers would work out, but you certainly you had confidence in yourself, so you made the move, and you moved to Wigan Athletic for £2 million, which is a considerable sum of money, certainly for someone so young. Now, explain what it was like. You are now at a Premier League club playing at these amazing grounds. I mean, what did you think? I mean, what was the difference from playing, say, at Ashton Gate?
Well, the stadiums were constantly full. I think just the players, their mentalities, and just the way they were quicker, they were stronger, they were more ruthless. I think in the Premier League, they take one chance and you can see the goal. In Championship, I think it's maybe 2 or 3 chances, then they'll score a goal. And then in League One, it's a few more chances and then a score as well. So I just think they're just more ruthless in the Premier League. There was no room for error, hence why that's where all the best players play. And so that's what I thought. But it was just a chance to experience, to play with much better players. Emi Heskey was there, Melchiot was there, and many other good players as well. So it was a chance for me to experience that and learn my trade. And I felt that that's where I always wanted to be. I always set out to be a professional footballer, but I wasn't content to just stay in League One or League Two. My dreams were always to play in the Premier League.
I mean, you went on to make 18 appearances for Wigan, and you scored the 1 goal of your Premier League career at West Ham. I want you to talk about that experience. I mean, scoring in the Premier League, it's every young boy's dream, isn't it? What happened at Wigan? Why didn't you play more games?
When I first went there, I was keeping Antonio Valencia at the team, so everything was fine. I went there, made a few appearances on the bench, then I was starting games, then we were doing all right, and I had a run. And then I think from such an early age, because I was so used to trying to perfect my life, of when I was training the right way, or I was practicing, I would maybe self-harm with my studs across my shins. No one would ever know this because I'd just say it's from a tackle. So I was always very hard on myself to perfect things. So when I went to Wigan, I didn't really take rejection very well. Like most human beings, we don't like rejection. So when I was there, my wife at the time was pregnant. We were very young. We were like 19, 20. I was away from all my family where we were living in Manchester. So it was very difficult. I felt like I didn't have that network around me to support me. And I didn't, in Paul Jewell, I didn't feel that I had the manager to go up to and say to him, do you know what, I'm actually struggling a little bit. Can you do this? Can you help me? Because he's a fiery scouser. He wouldn't allow that mentality and the old school mentality in football. He wouldn't allow it to happen. So I just kept my mouth shut. And when I wasn't playing week in, week out, John Toshak would say to me, if you're not playing for week in, week out with your club, then we're going to have to leave you out the national team. So that's what sparked me to then go out on loan, because I wanted to gain more first team experience. Because from such an early age, 16 to just before my 18th birthday, I moved to Bristol, but I was still playing relatively week in, week out at such a young age. And I think I was so used to playing first team football, I didn't really like sitting on the bench.
Sure. You've mentioned it a few times already. I think there's a culture in football, certainly certain characters. Now football is trying to change its attitudes towards mental health, for players' emotions, for etc. I mean, as fans, we sit there and watch and we just think this is a physical game. But of course, a lot of sport is played in your mind. You mentioned there, Paul Jewell, the fact he was old school, the fact that you clashed with someone like John Toshak. I mean, these are players from a different era where you just basically sucked it up. You didn't complain about emotional issues. Did you feel then that you were starting to unravel, or was this a case of I'm going to show them? And did you have an outlet for your emotions in any way?
The only outlet that I had was to feel free was on a Saturday afternoon or a Tuesday evening, is because that was the only time I felt free, is on a football pitch. During on a day-to-day basis in training or whatever it might be, I didn't really feel always content with myself. And then away from football as well, I had very stressful life in terms of, like, I had a young wife who was pregnant, had a family very young, and so on. So all those things were going on without no real support. So that could add up. I always knew that I was kind of different because I was self-harming from a young age. I just didn't know what it was. And so I always was searching for something to be perfect. And obviously, as I mentioned before, perfect isn't real. So that's what I was always searching for. I just wasn't educated about my mental state, really, more than anything else. It was always purely about how you're going to perform on the pitch rather than what you're going to be like as a human off it. And again, you see it in the news as well straight away. As soon as COVID-19 was mentioned, footballers were like, they need to take a pay cut, they need to do this, they need to do that. So it's always always the footballer's fault. But then you've got the politicians who are saying stuff that don't really make a difference anyway, and they're not making changes. So it's kind of like that mentality was always the case. You were always there to be shot at. And that's what I felt, even when I was walking around as a young guy. I remember losing a match. I took my children for food one day, and I had this one fan come up to me and said, "Why the fuck are you doing now for having food? Because we lost yesterday." I said, "Well, don't ever approach me at my dinner table again when my children are here, because that's disrespectful." And he was like, blah, blah, blah. I said, I don't come to you when you don't, say if you're a postman, for example, if you don't deliver the letter or the mail on time, no one comes up to you and shouts verbal abuse at you when you've got your children there. It's not right. So you're always having that pressure.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic, isn't it, with football? Certainly in the United Kingdom, I think it's one of the things that people miss most. I think the government realise it's one of the glues that keeps the country together. If we haven't got our football on a Saturday, somewhere for the nation to go and let out their frustration, then other things start to unwind. We've all been guilty of that as football fans, of course, in the stand, shouting at the players. It's almost as though the players are just there for our benefit. They are there to entertain us. We've seen with the work you're doing, and we've seen with other players now that this is a high-pressure life. And of course, the players that earn money at the top level, we know they earn ridiculous sums. But what about the players that are actually trying to scrape a living in the lower leagues, etc.? They feel, in fact, more pressure. So that's what I wanted to just find out from you. When did you have this sense of that things were starting to get on top of you? It sounds like it was a show, wasn't it? You were putting on this confidence for everybody, your manager, the supporters, perhaps your family. But you knew deep down that perhaps you were vulnerable at this time.
Yeah, I think probably that's the thing. I was always, even when I was such a young age, I'd be 19, 20, going out to a nightclub, I'd be buying bottles of champagne or whatever it may be. And I wouldn't even touch stuff because I didn't like champagne back then. So I was just trying to put on a show, or I don't know, maybe just to hide the fact of what I was going on deep down, because on the outside it looks great. I was happy, I was smiling, but then on the inside I was just like, I was miserable as fuck, really. I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy in my relationship for a long period of time. I just wasn't ever happy, to be quite honest. I was always searching for something better and better, and thinking that the grass is always going to be greener. And I just remember when I felt down, I'd always go and buy clothes, I'd go and buy new cars, and I'd just feel happy for about 20, 30 minutes maximum. Um, and then the only time that I thought I was happy or was when I was drunk. I was self-medicating. I was trying to take myself away from that pain and just pick up the quickest thing, the quickest fix that could help me. And I only ever did drink because I didn't need anything else, because I used to get absolutely paralytic. And so probably from when I started going through a divorce, my first divorce at the age of 24, 25, I think that's when my drinking really started to kick in. I was getting drunk a lot. It didn't matter if I was training or not. Even maybe before signing up for Doncaster, I didn't even want to play football. When I left Swansea, I wanted to retire. I didn't enjoy football at all. I was hating it. I hated the politics. I hated everything that come with it. I hated how players get treated like a piece of meat, like you're not a human being. So from a very early age, I knew that you're just on a conveyor belt, basically. You're just like ready for the next load, ready for the next load to come through, and they didn't really take you as a human being. I think that's what I really struggled with. And so then when I did go through that divorce, I literally just went on about a 3 or 4 year absolute bender. I was just like out all the time, getting steaming. I was scoring goals. My team was getting promoted. I was assisting. I was performing on a regular basis, and I just had the mentality that I felt I was untouchable. And ultimately, no one's untouchable. If you go out and just party like the way I did, you're not going to be able to keep it going for that amount of time. It eventually catches up on you.
No, I mean, it's incredible. As you said, you were still performing at the top level, and perhaps that gave you this sense of, you couldn't be defeated, as it were. Now you obviously it didn't work out in the Premier League. You weren't given the starts that you'd hoped for. So you went on loan to Sheffield United initially, and then you were signed permanently by them. Now Sheffield United, if anybody knows, is a massive football club. Again, Sheffield is a big football city. Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday. Did you find some happiness in football then? Because quickly you were moved. I would say you moved on. I'm looking at your career, David, and may I say that you literally spent 2 years at a club before you moved on. Do you see a pattern there? And what happened from Sheffield to move on to your next club, which was Swansea?
Yeah, I think with Sheffield United, I was very happy there. When I signed on loan, when Brian Robson was the manager, I went there and he was there for maybe 2 or 3 games, and then he got the sack. And then we brought in Kevin Blackwell, and everything was good. We were playing a style of football that we were playing all right. We had Gary Speed in midfield. We had good footballers. We had James Beat up front. I was on the wing. We had Carl Walker right back. And we were playing a decent way, not the attractive way that they're playing today. But we were getting results. We were winning. And then it was just like false promises, and just the way he was in terms of his man management skills and the way he would target younger players. If he was the manager today of a football club, I don't think he'd last 2 seconds, because he'd get sacked for bullying, to be honest, because it was just like not acceptable. I think it's well published that one of the younger players come out and actually said that he wasn't a well established first team player, but he did come out and he felt like he was getting bullied in that environment from him. And in terms of the football club, loved it. Fans were amazing, big club, loved playing on their pitch, loved everything about being at Sheffield United. I thought they were, it's a brilliant football club to be involved in. I just didn't get on well with the manager particularly. He probably thought I was a young, arrogant little idiot. I thought he was a fucking complete arsehole, if you want my truth. But and that's when I wanted to go. Swansea come in for me, and I thought I had a young family. It was my chance to get back home and have a better support network around me for my children to see my parents, to see the rest of the family. And that's hence why I decided to go back home to Cardiff and then travel to Swansea to go and play.
How did that work out? Anybody who knows South Wales will know that Swansea and Cardiff is one of the biggest rivalries. So you're a boy from Cardiff now playing for the Swans. And I understand, was there a death threat because you previously scored against Cardiff for somebody else? I mean, this is heavy stuff.
Yeah, I even had a death threat when I scored. I scored a penalty for Sheffield United against Cardiff at the old Cardiff City Stadium, Ninian Park. And I was actually out somewhere, and my wife at the time was in my house with my young child, and they were like targeting my wife and my child at that time because I scored a penalty against them. I'm thinking, well, what do you expect me to do? Do you want me to miss? It's like having it's like having a job. Say you're a painter and decorator and you're from Cardiff, you have the job in Swansea. It's like, all right, then I'm just going to go and mess this job up because I'm not from around here. It's ridiculous. It's my job. My job is to score, and to provide the best results for my team that I play for. I play to win. I'm not going out there for anything else other than to win. So that's when we had the one threat when I was at Sheffield United, and then I then signed for obviously Swansea, and my parents their house got sprays calling me a Jack bastard, because obviously the Swansea's nickname for the team is the Jacks.
Yeah, yeah.
So they sprayed the house, and it was just a chance. It was just a chance for me to get to Wales again and have a better support system for me and my family,
Yeah.
more than anything else. And I loved the way Swansea played. They played a very attractive football. They were the only team probably in the Championship at that time that were passing people off the park, and that was really attractive to me. And I knew a few of the lads there from the Welsh squad, very exciting younger players. Paulo Sousa was the manager there, so he won like 2 Champions League, so he knows his stuff. And the chairman really liked me, so everything fitted well. I just went there, and obviously the change of manager, Brendan Rodgers, came in, and I just fell out of place. I missed 2 penalties, and then I didn't see the pitch again. But in terms of preparation and the way he was, his coaching was unbelievable. It's the best training I've ever come across, and he was very good man management skills. Really, I can't really fault him. I missed 2 penalties. Things just didn't work out that way. Maybe he didn't like me with my attitude, and so I don't really have a bad word to say about Brendan, because he's a brilliant manager, and his training was by far the best in terms of intensity and the quality that he brought to the football club. I thought it was amazing.
From the few footballers I know personally, it seems it's such a fragile profession. It all comes down to personalities, actually. You could actually be having a great season on the pitch, and with a change of manager, you may clash in personality, or they just want to bring in their own players. That this is a career where there's really no long-term security. You may get injured, but you certainly may move on. And that's what happened. You stayed at Swansea for just 2 years. You went out to Portsmouth on loan, and then you had a short spell at Barnsley before going on to Doncaster. So you're moving back up north. What happened at Barnsley? And I know that you enjoyed your time at Doncaster, and it all kind of clicked in place again, didn't it?
Yeah, I left Swansea. I actually went training week or so, and I was literally on fire. Honestly, I was like, all the lads that were there at Leicester, like Kasper Schmeichel, all the other big players, they were like saying, "You're definitely Swansea," and I've managed to get a bigger club in terms of Leicester. And I thought, this would be a good move for me. But then they signed someone else, it just happens in football. Maybe the manager preferred, I wasn't his first choice, and he just got his first choice player in the end, which was perfectly fine. But then I went to Barnsley. They offered me a short deal there. I just didn't like it there from the second I walked through the door, to be quite honest. Even driving up to meet the managers and go to the training ground, I was thinking, I don't want to be here. I just didn't like it. I didn't like the way the manager was. I didn't like anything about it at all. The fans were great. I don't have anything to say badly about the fans. I just think probably the professionalism in terms of the management staff there is not the best I've come across in terms of just like the way they were. I think they kind of because I played in the Welsh team, and I played in the Premier League, I felt like they were just always targeting that. Do you know, like they were always targeting that, as in like, you're a bigger name than them, or whatever it might be. It was just really weird and bizarre. I didn't enjoy my time there. I was thinking, fuck it, I'm going to retire again. My second time I was thinking that. And then eventually Dean Saunders rang me, and he was like, look, come and play for me at Doncaster. I know what you can do. I've been around the coach, the Welsh setup. Obviously, I've been your coach. Come and get me promoted from League One, get enjoying football again, and you get back in the Welsh team. Because I was out the squad for a little while with the Welsh squad for maybe like 2 or 3 years. And normally when you're out the Welsh squad, you never get back in squads, because you just go out of favour or your career goes down. Whereas
I took a few stepwards, but can you hear me?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, so I took a few steps back, and then that's what I decided to do. I went there, I enjoyed it, but then my drinking was in full flow really there, where I was just like going out all the time. But we were winning. When you're winning, you don't get questioned. It's just when when you start losing matches, that's what happens. But I remember when I went there and met Dean Saunders, he just took me for an Indian, and he just like took me out for a case. Oh, just come here and enjoy it. We're just going to go out. Do you want to like a beer and stuff? So we had a beer, and then that's the way it was. It was just kind of relaxed, but we knew that when it came to playing, it was time to win, and that's what I was okay with really. I was going out getting drunk. I was single, so girls were getting involved. So that all like played a part really.
Yeah. So, I mean, we know about this drinking culture probably in the 80s and the 90s at certain clubs. And a lot of the characters you've been talking about came from that era. I mean, Dean Saunders is an incredible striker. I mean, fantastic player down the years. And obviously the Welsh connection helped. So Doncaster, you had great success. I mean, you went on to play over 80 games for them. You scored decent goals. I mean, I've been watching some of your goals today, and you're in and out of the Welsh squad now. You're back involved. Now, just explain now for anybody watching, what is it like playing for your country? Is that the pinnacle for you?
Yeah, I think so. I love playing and being involved with the Welsh squad because we were all very young. We all got brought up from like the under-21s together, and we just really kicked on. We were, the mentality was changing. And when I first broke into the team, I remember I was like 17 years of age, and I used to just watch Ryan Giggs. Just literally, I think I stalked him eating his soup around the table because I was so upset. He was like my hero back then. So to then be playing with your hero is amazing, really. And then obviously when we all broke through and I was back into the squad and we were looking for something bigger, Gary Speed brought the amazing mentality and the professionalism back into the squad, because when we used to go away with John Toshak, honestly, it was just like a bender. We used to just have Chinese, we had Indian food, we had bottles of wine on the table. So Speedo brought that better mentality and more professionalism to the group. And obviously Chris Coleman then took that onto a new level, and we were going into games, and we were actually going into games to win, whereas like before we go into the games we were thinking if we get a draw here or we lose by 2, we've done all right. But the mentality started to change. Obviously Gareth Bale was a major part in that. Ramsey was huge, Joe Allen, Ashley Wynn. So our spine of the team was very, very good, and the rest of us would then sign in for bigger clubs, and that's how we improved.
I mean, it was an incredible time in Welsh football. I mean, it was. We'll talk a little bit about the Euros that you were involved in. The Welsh team did so well in 2016, but you mentioned a name there that I can't not talk about. Gary Speed. The more I read and understand about Gary Speed, one of the most respected people in football. And it was a shock to not only the football world, but the sporting world when Gary Speed took his life. Can you share some experiences of your relationship with Gary?
Yeah, so when I was actually at Sheffield United, we used to have a car school because we lived in Manchester and Speedo lived in Chester, and he would, so it'd be me, him, James Beattie and Gary Naismith. We would travel over. So Speedo kind of took me under his wing because I was a fellow Welshman, and I was very young, and he was amazing to me. Really, him and Craig Bellamy are probably the best professionals that I've come across in terms of trying to be the best every single day and just the way they handle themselves. And he was just amazing, really. He was an amazing person. We'd meet up every day for training. I never really seen a side to him that he was struggling with mental health issues or anything whatsoever. So for obviously whatever that happened, it was just a whole shock to the whole world, really, not just the guys and the people that knew him.
Yeah. I remember just the reaction of fellow professionals. This man was revered. I mean, he had everything in life we thought, and that's the key. Though perhaps now, hopefully, he could approach people. But for me, the fact that you're doing talks like this, David, is so refreshing. I mean, it actually goes against the grain in football. I'm sure the people watching tonight will get an indication that football is a macho world. In fact, sport is a macho world, and that's got to change, because people are under pressure in professional sport, like any walk of life. I want to just before we go any further though, I just want to remind people of what you actually were good at on that pitch. I know I've got some people from South Africa watching, and I want to give them a football education here. I've dug out a short video here from your next club, which is Birmingham City, and they put together some of your highlights. It's only a couple of minutes, but as I said, there's good goals here. It's the previous, thank you. Hey, David, the glory days back again for you. It was the internet was quite slow there for me this end, so I hope it worked for everybody else. I do promise you were quicker in real life than I was getting a stuttering video there. But Birmingham City was a place you found your home again, didn't you? I mean, I get the impression you fell in love with football again. You went on to play over 100 games, scoring 14 goals. For a club that's got a good fan base, the Blues, they're famous, they're loyal supporters, they're long-suffering. What about your experience there? And you got on with the manager, Gary Rowett, didn't you?
Yeah, I loved my time there. The first 2 seasons I did anyway. I loved playing for Rowett. He got my style of play that we were there. We were very organised. I was always on the set pieces. We knew we were well structured. We knew what we were doing, very prepared going into the games. And he just got me as a person, really. He knew that I always had that edge of being a bit of a loose cannon where, you know, he knew that I was out drinking. He knew that I loved having a little bit of banter around the place. And he just got me. And then we were doing so well. We were 3 points off second place to get promoted to the Premier League. And I thought, that was in December and he got the sack. And I just felt that we were a couple of signings off getting promoted. We had a real chance. We were like well organised, as I said. We worked extremely hard. The group of guys in the change room were very, very good. And so I just thought we were so close. And then obviously I think we played Rotherham. We won like 4-2 and then we beat Ipswich like 1-0. And then the chairman was just like, I'm not happy with the style of play we're playing. It's a load of rubbish. And we all know that to play at the championship level, or any level really, it's very difficult to win football matches. And so he decided to then bring in Gianfranco Zola, and it just completely changed the whole dimension of the group really in the changing room.
Yeah. It just shows you how fragile football is, isn't it? Often football clubs are run by non-football people, so they don't understand that. Did you feel when someone like Gary Rowett, who allowed you to be yourself in your perhaps to your own kind of standards, when he left, does that just then undermine everything you built up? I mean, do you feel like they're moving on, or what was your reaction to that? Because it is, again, shows what a fragile life it is as a footballer.
it just started to unfold that all the players like got on well with Guy Rao then end up leaving eventually, because that's what their plan was, is to try and get all the players and Guy Rao's formation and philosophy to then get us out. Really, I was a big part of that. The chairman, people knew in the group that I was drinking, but never got addressed. In the football industry, it'd be like, right, he's a loose cannon, he's a fucking alcoholic, he's drinking non-stop, he loves a night out, rather than how can we help this guy get better. If we can help him out, we can. But again, I never used to speak about my mental health during my playing career, because I didn't want to jeopardize my contract to put food on the table for my kids, because that was my income, and secondly, I didn't feel that I would have a manager who was suitable to talk to, because I feel that you would explain your problems, but then they would throw you out the door to be someone else's problem. They didn't want to take that on board, because you have to understand the managers are under huge amounts of pressure themselves from above. So they need to look after themselves as well. I feel like everyone's just looking after themselves, especially in that industry. You'd have teammates, your own teammates would go upstairs to the manager's office and say, well, he was out in the piss last night, I can smell alcohol on him, or whatever it might be. So you even had like your kind of teammates stitching you up with that sort of stuff. And it just never got resolved. When Gianfranco Zola came in, I was negotiating a new deal with Rowett, then I was negotiating a new deal with Zola, and I wanted to stay. I loved playing for Birmingham. So then obviously the chairman wanted different ideas, and they called me the last day of the January transfer window. And that's when I joined Bristol City back on loan. I had a call, and I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave Birmingham, but then it's only when Gianfranco called me, and he was like, you have to understand, if you stay here, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to have to make you train on your own, because I've been told from above that you got to be training on your own. You're not going to be a part of the plans, and it's not going to be made a nice environment for you. So that's hence why I left.
Yeah. Well, we were certainly glad to have you back in Bristol, where it all started again. You went on to play, I think it was about 13 games, wasn't it? You scored a couple of goals. And then when did you decide to hang your boots up then? I mean, for the first time. And tell us about this little adventure in India. What happened there?
So I was actually, when I left Bristol City, and I left Birmingham, again, Steve Cotterill was then the manager there, and Harry Redknapp was the manager before that. There was so many changes. Harry Redknapp said to me, I'm going to make you train on your own. You're not involved in this group. And then about a week later, I was playing in the starting 11. So like, those things always change. Just 1 minute you're nowhere, you're not going to get involved in the team. Next thing you're starting. So there was a lot of politics involved. And then when I left Birmingham, eventually, when we agreed to terminate my contract because it was best for both parties, I wanted to maybe continue playing. Mick McCarthy rang me to go and sign for Ipswich, but they offered me like an 18-month contract, and my heart wasn't set in playing anymore. The last 18 months or so, I didn't really enjoy football at all. It was just all involved with the politics. I was mentally drained. I was drinking like 3 or 4 bottles of red wine a night, and just getting into huge amounts of trouble. My times in Birmingham, I tried taking my own life about 3 occasions, and then I'd go back into training the next day and just smiling, acting normal. But a few hours before that, I tried to take my own life. So it was just kind of like really mixed for me. I didn't really enjoy towards the back end of my career. And then I had a call off someone in India. Teddy Sheringham was keen to get me over there, and that's why I just thought, what, I might try a new experience. I've always wanted to try different cultures, and that's why I decided to go to ATK Kolkata, where Robbie Keane was in the team, Teddy Sheringham was the manager. So I just felt that I wanted a new experience.
Okay. I think we can't go any further about touching now on the issues you've mentioned. Now, clearly you're in a pressured environment in football. When, David, can you honestly say you can look back when you realise you had a problem here? I'm glad to say, and congratulations, you're 14 months sober, which is absolutely fantastic. But I want to go back to the day you realised that this wasn't just drinking. This was a bigger problem, and you were masking something else. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I think probably looking back, it was from the pressures of such a young age. You're always trying to win a contract, you know, you're self-harming them from a young age. And my parents didn't even know this, by the way, until I spoke about when I retired from football. So they were, you know, I just always masked it from everyone, really. I was very good at hiding that. And then, so probably looking back in hindsight now, I'd say from my teenage years.
Yeah. And you've mentioned consistently this idea of self-harming. Now it's an interesting dynamic. I know when I was struggling last year, I was asked by a therapist, well, what about self-harm? I said, absolutely not. No, not at all. And then I suddenly stopped and thought, I wasn't eating properly. I was running like a half marathon almost every other day. Now that's a form of self-harm, of course, and it's a way of relieving the anxiety you've got in your body, in your mind. And it was a relief. And I realized I had a problem when exercising wasn't giving me that fix. Now with you, it was a bottle that you actually looked at. And as we had a discussion earlier when we were preparing for the interview. You assured me it was just alcohol. There was no drugs involved here as such. But of course, alcohol is a powerful drug and it's destructive. Now, when did you actually look in the mirror and seek help? And was help there available for you?
I didn't think there was help available until a close friend of mine who actually helps with my website. She was explaining that she's spoken for some help her end, one for her personally, but she said Sporting Chance were good, like rehab, and she named some other rehabs you should look to get help. But the initial conversation was from my my ex-wife previously, just not long gone. She was just like saying, look, you need help, because, you know, I'd come home, I'd try and self-harm, I'd have knives around my throat, I'd have like a corkscrew to my throat, around my wrist, and then I'd just black out on the kitchen floor. She'd wake up crying the next day. And I'm thinking, what have I done? Again, I was used to just getting shit, and then I just didn't really want to be around anymore. I was just like fed up of just feeling shit every day. I wanted to just take myself out of the equation. I thought if I wasn't here, then everyone else would be happy. And then all of a sudden I just thought, I've had enough. I don't want to drink no more, and I need to get better because I'm fed up of feeling like shit, and I want to make sure that my children have a dad for me to stay around. So I decided then to check into rehab. But even before rehab, I knew I was going to stop drinking. I remember my last drink, I just thought, didn't even enjoy it. And I asked one of my friends, what do I act like when I've had 2 or 3 drinks? He was just like, honestly, you're just an arsehole. So I just thought I need to change. And so that's what I did. I checked into rehab. But then also, I don't state that I'm perfect now. I still make daily mistakes, still cause, you know, problems for myself and others as well, where I don't perceive myself as being perfect. I just try and be better each day. And 14 months is still not a long period of time for me to be on my recovery and me to just take it for granted. I never would take that for granted, because it's always a daily struggle, or, you know, you need to work on yourself every single day. So I never perceived myself as being perfect, but I still continue to make mistakes like anyone else.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful that, you know, one, successful in taking my own life, and I have the options, not the option, but I'm here now to be the best dad that I can be.
Yeah. If anybody doesn't know, David's got 3 beautiful kids as well. So, I mean, if that's not a reason for living, I don't know what is. But one thing that you did say, and I know it's quite gallows humor, you're a better footballer than you were at actually attempting suicide. Thankfully, you were. But it's obviously something serious, but the fact that you addressed it is admirable. Now, can you just explain to people this feeling, or what is addiction, as it were? I mean, is this something you're going to be vulnerable for the rest of your life, or is it something you feel you've got under control now?
The only thing that when you're an addict, you can be addicted to anything. You know, you have to be very careful, because, you know, when I was 3 or 4 years sober, 3 or 4 years single, sorry, I was literally, all I was doing is drinking and meeting girls. That was all I was doing. And so you have to be very careful, you know, your one addiction, don't go to the next addiction. It doesn't have to mean it's like drugs, alcohol, or gambling, or whatever it might be. It could be anything, you know, eating, like what you mentioned earlier, being obsessed with going for runs, or whatever it might be. Of course, some addictions are a lot worse than others. So it's just, I just couldn't stop. I literally, when people always say to me, I'm fed up of hearing it, it's like, well, can you not have one or two drinks and then go out? Well, if I knew how to do that, I would have done it many years ago. You can't. As soon as I hit that one, as soon as that little mouthful goes down, it's game over for me, because I want more and more and more, because I'm obsessed with just having more and more and more.
There's an element of being a perfectionist in all this, isn't it? You can't just have a drink. You've got to drink to excess. You can't just play football. You've got to be the best on that pitch. And I think that drives us, but it also is destructive. Don't you agree?
Yeah, it does, for sure. I think I was always searching for perfection, and it's just not possible. It's just, even after like nights out, some of my friends would go home like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. I'd be like, why are you going home? It's too early. Let's stay out. So I was always searching for like to stay out. I was never satisfied with anything.
Yeah. No, it's that element, I think. What I think we'll do now, David, is we'll open it up to the people watching, because if you can, ladies and gentlemen, there's a feature at the bottom where you can actually type some questions. So we're gonna open it up now, because if there's anything about David's challenges or his football career, I'm sure he'd welcome those questions. Terry, have we got any questions so far that have come in?
We have one question to David. How are you keeping fit in the lockdown?
I've actually been doing home workouts with my son, so that's what my routine is not as good as when I was going to the gym every day, but I do try and do, press ups, sit ups, squats, just more body stuff really than anything else. Just, I've been going on bike rides, I go for walks, so I've just been doing that really with my children, or with me at home with my son.
You're looking fit. You haven't changed much. I tell you, that's the advantage of our haircut. You see, once we go bald, we're sort of ageless. I think that's the case. But I remember when you burst on the scene at Bristol City. There was a flair about you. You had a confidence, and as I said, the world was your oyster. But you didn't realise that perhaps your hairline was going to recede so quickly. I know that feeling. I've got one here. I've got a question here from Sean Edwards. Could you read that one out, please, Terry?
If one person could have done one thing to make a difference to you, your mental health early on, what would that have been?
Good question.
Probably just to feel like I had a safe place to talk without being judged, really, because I think that perfection was always, and I didn't feel like I didn't want help. I didn't search for help. I didn't even know where to go, to be quite honest, because I wasn't educated enough about it. And I just thought I thought I wasn't normal, but I just thought it was normal, just being the way I was. I just, I didn't feel that I had someone to go to and talk to and express my feelings, to not be judged by it, really.
Another question from Mark. Firstly, congratulations on 14 months sober. In terms of the moment when you accepted you were an addict, what were your feelings? Was it fear, relief, shame, a drive to be better, etc.?
I think it's very difficult for me to come to terms with that I'm an alcoholic. I didn't come to terms with it until I probably, the first week, 2 weeks of being in rehab. I was just like, I remember the therapist was saying, like, you're an alcoholic, basically. And I was like, wow, I couldn't come to terms with it, really. And then until I left, it was still, when you hear the word addict, or you say you've been into rehab, everyone always thinks, wow, he's definitely fucked and he's hit rock bottom, and so on, because you always have that perception. So I first come to terms with it probably the second week of being in rehab, and even still, I still get questioned to it for this day. Some people always say, oh, you can go back and drink, it wasn't this, it wasn't that, but yeah, I can never go back and drink normal, because I'll end up through the roof like I was before. But I have come to terms with it now, and I don't really give a damn, to be quite honest. I've got to a point where I've spoken about my mental health. It's all publicized over the news. I've had bad press, I've had this and that, and I don't really give a shit. I just want to try and focus on to be the best person that I can be on a daily basis. If people want to say horrible things and say certain things, then I've come to terms with it. As long as my children are healthy and safe, then people can say what they want. I'm an alcoholic, and and I've dealt with my issues regarding that, and that's hence why I stopped drinking, because it was basically stop drinking or die for me. There was no in between.
Yeah, I think the key thing here, David, is that people are attracted to you now as you show your vulnerability, because we're all vulnerable, and especially those people, you know, within the limelight, the people who are successful, professional sports people, for example. You don't expect them to have these struggles. Now, when somebody comes out and actually says that they are struggling like everybody else, I think that's so powerful. And I think what the work you're doing is amazing in doing that. And I think that it actually makes you feel better, doesn't it? I know when I reached out for help last year, and I said, I'm struggling here, I need some external help. It was hard to find, I must admit, and that's the reason I'm keen to support your foundation, because I think the NHS is quite overloaded, and it will be in terms of support for things like this. But I think the more people that come out and talk about it and share with their friends, with their bosses and family, I think that's for the good of everybody. Terry, is there some other questions, please?
There are a whole bunch of questions. I don't know how much time you have, but
no, we've got plenty of time.
Okay, let me find the one that from Ben. David, what structures do you have in place day to day to support your recovery?
I'm quite lucky, really. I have a few trusted friends from the AA fellowship. So when I feel low, I just have a good support network around me. Whereas when I was in rehab, I always thought, well, I can still go out party and I can still have the same friends. I can still continue to do what I was doing before, but just stop drinking. And I think you have to change the people around you, because people change, and I'm probably not the person that they want me to be, and they're not the people that I want them to be, because if we go out, we're totally different. So I just surround myself with more people who probably want me as a person, rather than I've always had a lot of people around me who wanted to message me and come out with me when it was time to party. Now that I'm not offering anything from that, like free football tickets to go and watch Wales, to go and watch this and that, I don't have that many messages off those type of people anymore. I just surround myself with good people. If I'm feeling low, I speak to my business partner who's a psychotherapist, so she'll surround me with good things. So I just have that really good group of people around me that I can talk to, give me the best advice, rather than people who's got no interest in what I'm doing.
Terry, I believe there's a question from a good friend of mine down there in Minehead, my hometown, Jonathan Reed. What did Jonathan have to say?
Did the football industry, this is from Jonathan, did the football industry encourage your personal and social development in any way? Are you aware that the profession is changing in terms of developing young players as people? Would you recommend that academies did any one thing in the future to safeguard young players?
I think there are a lot of football clubs who are doing great things. I still believe that more should be done in protecting the young players, because they're there to be targeted all the time. Most footballers are probably off from the council estates like I was from. So you're very close to the people and the fans who normally go to football matches, and you obviously follow that dream. You've got a lot of pressures from that point of view. And I think there are good support networks that players have in place, but I still feel that a lot of agents, parents, even when the young footballers coming through, they see them as their payday or a pension or whatever it might be. So it's very difficult for a young footballer, and not everyone has that support network around them to have the support that they need. The football clubs, I do know a lot of them are actually trying to put that in place, but I still feel more needs to be done. Before it gets too late, it's just being more prevention rather than cure, really. Just make sure things are in place before it gets a little too late for someone who gets in the shit, really.
And
I think we've got time for one or two more.
Okay, from my good friend Elroy in South Africa, who's a good sportsman. Congratulations on your sporting achievements. Thank you for raising awareness of mental health, as we need more guys like you to help younger up-and-coming sport people. What is the risk, as you mentioned, that you were constantly chasing results? And how many times do you forget to look back and see how far you've come?
Yeah, I was always looking for results, always. The thing is now is that I don't really look back and think, even when I made my Welsh debut, I was just one of these people that I was like, I didn't feel proud at that moment in time. I always wanted more and more, as I keep mentioning in the call, is that I always wanted more. So I wouldn't really rest on my laurels from that point of view. So I always wanted to just do better. And that's what I was always searching for. I think the problem is now is that people can't forget your past, whereas like they'll bring that up to you and say, oh, well, you're an arsehole before, and they just won't let you then be on your own recovery because they don't think that you've changed or whatever. But that's fine. I don't really look back on my past and think, because I can't change it. It's done. I can't change that. I can't, I can only decide what I'm doing today because I can't plan the future because we don't know what's going to happen. And I just literally just go from day to day really and try and be the best person I can be on a day-to-day basis. As I mentioned before, I'm not perfect at all. I still have plenty of fuck ups. I just try and be as best I can.
Yeah, certainly, David. I'm seeing some wonderful questions coming through from some good friends of mine as well. And thank you everyone for supporting this evening. It's I know there's a lot of pressures on us at the moment with our time and whatever, but I think this has been an absolutely outstanding evening in terms of just opening up and sharing and being ourselves and being honest as well. Perhaps we'll just one more question, Terry, and then we'll wrap it up, please.
Sure. Back to David. There's one from Kelly. And there are a couple there are 3 or 4 that were sort of the same thing. What advice would you give to young athletes who are currently playing in the elite environments like you did if they are struggling with their mental health? Who can they talk to if their manager, player, background staff are not the type of people you can discuss these issues with?
I think there's a lot of great help out there. Well, you can speak to the PFA, for example, if they are in the football industry regarding that. I know the PFA are really stepping up with that support. And also, there's plenty of support. That's hence why I've brought out mental health courses with the Crystal Matrix with my psychotherapist partners, because we're just providing that self-care. If they're younger, if they're under the age of 16, we provide free courses and support network for them. If you're above, then obviously there's something else for that. But we are trying to get them out there. And there are, great organisations that you can speak to. There's counsellors, but again, I think if you are a parent, you need to make sure and try and be aware of how your children can come and speak to you, and just be approachable really more than anything else, and not put too much pressure on them. I think that's the way to go forward, because if they're having that pressure in the football environment, they need to make sure that they're coming home to a safe place where they can actually talk and you listen to them to get them the best help. And just by talking to someone just helps you so much. As we always say, it's okay not to be okay, and it's really important that we do actually reach out and make sure we listen to people. And before I go, I wanted to say thank you for everyone who's joined the call and supporting a great cause of the foundation and my team, that we're trying to help as many people suffering with mental health and addiction as possible. So thank you.
David, on that note, can I just ask you to just pass on the contact details of anybody who wants to get in touch with you in the foundation, and the actual different areas that you actually offer in terms of the help?
Yeah, so the courses for the children and for adults as well, it's available for everyone. It's the crystalmatrix.com. So that's available. It's all on my Instagram as well, which we post on a daily basis. My foundation is the David Cotterill Foundation.com as well, where you can mail us at any time, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible to provide you, any care. We can get a member of the team to get hold of you. If not, if we can't, then we'll make sure that you get in touch with the right available people that will benefit your needs really more than anything else. But we just provide that. But if anyone is struggling, they want some help, then they can have the Crystal Matrix. The course is all self-paced. You don't have to do it in a immediate time. You're just doing your own time, is like what I mentioned, and it's very confidential. You don't have to show anyone. It's behind the screen. I know some people might not be feeling comfortable to talk to someone else and show their vulnerability, but they can access the courses, and it's just purely for their own self-development to make sure that they improve and reframe their mind.
Thank you, David. That's fantastic. I just like to echo what you said. Thank you so much for everybody for joining us this evening. I'm sure a lot of people are out there that wish they could have joined us, but what we're going to do is we're going to record this session, this wonderful interview. And I can't believe how time has gone so quickly. That's an hour and a quarter we've spent. It's nearly a 90-minute session. It's like a football match without a halftime break.
I know.
But,
I'm more exhausted off this than the football match.
I bet you are. I bet you are. You're just glad I wasn't your manager. I would have put you through the ringer, boy, I tell you. Listen, I just want to thank you so much. I mean, David, I'm going to have to say, David Rees, George Best Cotterill. You went on, you played over 400 league appearances. You appeared for your country on 24 occasions. But this is the most, in my opinion, this is the most important work of your life. I think what you're doing now is absolutely fantastic. Sharing your experiences with people that will actually listen. And I know as a fan and now a friend, I really respect what you're doing. You're open, you're vulnerable. Every day you put out positive messages, and you're there to help yourself as well as others, and that's the main thing. So I really want to thank you for tonight, and I'm sure everybody on this call would also like to thank you as well. And David's given you his details. Please do reach out, as you said, and also reach out to me as well. I mean, Dr. Dean Allen, I'm on social media. Most of you know me. And thank you. Please look out for talks like this we're going to be doing in the future. I'm going to be interviewing an old mate of yours, Dave, soon, Steve Phillips, the ex-Bristol City and Rovers goalie, in a few weeks' time. And this coming Thursday, for anybody interested in rugby, I'm going to be interviewing Captain Fantastic, Jean de Villiers, who's a Springbok legend. So please look out for that on social media, because at the end of the day, we can all sit at home and we can switch on our computer or laptop, and it's all there, it's accessible. It's the new normal, they call it. But I'm going to leave now with a final word from David, and thank you very much as well. Thank you again for joining us this evening. David, do you want to have the final say?
Yeah, thank you for everyone who's joined. Thank you for sharing, obviously making donations to the foundation. That's helping as many people as possible. I want to thank Dean for taking the call on as well, because he's helped me a lot as well in my recovery. So again, thank you for taking this on board and helping us out as much as possible. And yeah, if anyone is struggling, then I always, it's a bad day, it's not a bad life, and make sure you continue to go on your journey and just make sure that, well, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. So so keep going. If anyone's struggling, there's always a way out, and that's what I tell myself daily. So thank you for joining the call, and stay safe. Pleasure.
Thank you, everybody. We'll be sending out a link with the recording, so please keep an eye out for that. So we've got your details. So as I said, and as David said, have a great evening. Thanks so much for your support, and we'll see you soon. All the very best. Take care.
The Zoom thanks.
Oh yes, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Terry, as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Pleasure.
Have a good evening, everybody. All the best. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.